slideshow, but I know that this is actually not browsed by an individual. Play from current slide. And I just got to share my screen. I'm going to go to the entire screen, but I have to move this away. And I just got to share my screen. I'm hearing me from your computer.
Yeah, how do I do that?
I don't know. I don't think you'll be able to have the webinar on your computer unless you're able to mute the webinar video itself.
Oh, damn. Okay, so
I'll just keep watching the chat for questions and stuff, so that way I can just handle that because I've got it on my laptop. Unless you pull it up on your phone.
Maybe, oh, I can't mute it. I wish I had my other. Damn it. All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay. So
now we're just waiting to see who is on. So whoever is on, welcome. We will get started in just a few minutes. This is like a little crazy. This is our first time doing a webinar where we've got two hosts at the same time. So it's a little bit techy.
Yeah.
But on the positive side, I see that the webinar link itself is working. So we've got that.
All right.
So if you are on and patiently waiting, pop into the chat area, and I would love it if you would let us know where you are listening in from and what is your number one question about details that you would like us to answer, if you have a question off the top of your head. Are you able to see the webinar, Max?
I'm opening it right now in my phone.
Okay.
I just can't see any comments quite yet.
Yeah, it looks like there's probably a lot of people trying to get on here all at once, so it's being like super slow. So Max, I don't know if you knew this, but I actually had some tech issues from my site it was last month when I lost.
You crashed the internet.
Yeah, and I think I'm actually, if this isn't working, I'm probably going to freak, because in January, I launched the Mastering Moment Seekers course and had no clue about web hosting and things like that. And so I'm able to get on here on my laptop just fine, but it looks like there might be a few people that are having some trouble. So I'm just going to give people a few more minutes. If you are having technical difficulties, if we pause for any reason, just refresh your page. We're just going to give people a few more minutes to hop on. If you are, I did send out in the email that I just sent as the reminder.
Just sent me an Instagram saying they didn't get the link.
No? Well, they should have got that in that first auto email.
And it's not working. It looks like it's telling me 0 participants. What does yours say?
It says the same, but I think it's just that people are having a hard time getting onto the site again.
There's a lot of traffic.
Mm-hmm. So in January, when this happened, right after, I called my host and I told them what happened, and they told me to get onto this other server. So I paid to upgrade and thinking, okay, I'm good, I'm golden. And then it happened again last month. And so I was like, you guys put me on this server, and they were telling me I needed to upgrade to a private server. So I did that. And but then the webinars in the next week or two did work. So this is really weird that this is happening again, but I'm telling you guys, if anyone is on here listening, I have upgraded twice. It was like a $300 upgrade in March and then another $300 last month. So if this isn't working because of that again, I am sorry. I'm going to change hosts.
Yeah.
But anybody who got the email should be able to see. I'm going to go over to the YouTube link. I'm just going to pull that up here in my inbox. They just sent it to you. If I click on the YouTube link, the video should be streaming.
Yeah, just responding to this.
I'm not going to keep it on because I'm going to hear you.
My associate actually can't log on either.
Yeah, so they need to just click the YouTube link, which I sent that out in an email about 5 minutes ago, the backup link. So there's nothing else we can really do unless they just go to that. I can see it just fine in YouTube.
Okay. Will they be able to comment?
Yeah, if they,
Okay.
yep, if they're in YouTube. So
Let me actually.
I'm going to go ahead and pop into Facebook real quick on my laptop, and I'm just going to post the YouTube link there.
That's a good idea. Where you're gonna post it on which page? Your private page?
Probably both the Facebook, my Facebook page, as well as my Facebook group, Goodbye Posing Ed.
Okay.
So, and then we'll be able to go ahead and begin, and I will screencast this and record it so we can send out the recording to anybody that missed it.
All right.
So we'll be good. Goodbye. So hang tight, everybody. I don't know what's up with this. I think I just need to switch server hosts, and I really wish that I could call them out right now, but it just wouldn't be very nice to do.
I know, but this is really frustrating. This
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, we worked really hard on
And $600 later after upgrading, I shouldn't have issues with webinars. I'm on my own private server. I'm not on a shared server.
it. Yeah.
Join us here.
Let me send.
Let's send the YouTube link, which is right here.
All right. I'm just sending the second link to a few people that are messaging me.
Okay. I'm going to text myself that YouTube link and send it out, and then we'll be good to go.
Yes. Don't worry, everyone. People are probably like, I'm missing this.
Yeah. Facebook. Just got to post it on my Facebook page and we will be good to go. If you are on and patiently waiting, thank you for your patience. I will, or you can post comments in the YouTube, on the YouTube feed itself below the video. So we'll be able to see that. I'm going to pull that up here on my computer. And then we will see your questions. So we will, when we get to the Q&A segments, we will be answering those as well. We've got a really valuable webinar put together for you. Let me just open up that YouTube link for myself here. Go ahead, if you are in the YouTube area, please pop into the chat. We want to know what you want to know about details because we do have a lot of information to share with you. Max, I can hear me on your computer.
Yeah, I just turned it down.
Okay.
I'm going to turn off that sound.
And
Okay.
so I can see there's 6 comments. So people can see us. So good. We've got people on. There's 44 people watching right now. So, all right,
awesome.
We're going to go ahead and get started. I can see the YouTube page on my laptop here. So we're good to go. Sorry about all of that. Once again, I don't know. I think I just need to switch hosts because, again, I have upgraded twice. So embarrassing. What can you do?
I can't see the comments, but maybe.
If you're on the YouTube page and then go down, it's below the video. There's like all about details, and then there's my picture, and then it says started streaming 10 minutes ago, comment 6. You might just need to continue to refresh your page.
Yeah, probably.
So like I can see Rachel, Ebony, Kendra. Rachel says, comments only work if you agree to start a YouTube channel. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know.
Oh, so I guess there's my
maybe there. Yeah, that could be
All
it.
right, so maybe you can just mention a few. I don't know. This is all right. We're gonna try to do this.
Yeah, if you guys, if any of you are listening and you're not able to comment, another thing you can do is I have the Goodbye Posing Guide Facebook page up on my laptop. Just go into that thread and I will go back and forth so that way we can make sure we see.
Monitor that.
Okay, cool. All right, so here's what we're going to cover today. Once again, welcome to the All About Details webinar with Max Gray and myself, Marie Moss. We have been talking about details since like January. This is a topic that we are super passionate about. We shoot with 2 different approaches in our sessions, and it's been really fun to come together and just share this one common passion of ours in this variety of ways and put together this fun little training. So what we're going to cover today are what exactly does detail photography or using details to tell a story really mean. We'll talk about detail photos clients will purchase and ones that they won't and how to know the difference. We'll talk about how details set you apart and impact pricing, as well as how you get details while shooting clients. So lots to cover right now. I just want to check. Oh, good. I wanted to make sure that my PowerPoint was nice and big for you all on the YouTube screen, and it looks like it is. So, so for one thing, I want you to stick around because we have a special gift for all of you that, for one thing, if you stick around to the end after all of the tech problems in the beginning, I am impressed that you have that kind of patience to listen to us. Anyway, we have a little gift that's around a $200 value that we'll be giving out to some of you later today. So we're going to begin with sharing our stories in what details mean to us, because I think that there is one thing that is not really talked about. Like we hear people talk about details, people meaning photographers, but I think that there is a big not misconception, but I think people have their own perspectives of what details are. And so before we start talking about details and all the elements that we're going to cover, I think it's important that you understand where we're coming from as photographers. So for me, details are the why. I wouldn't say that I'm a really emotional person, but I'm a very sentimental person. I have, those of you that have been around the Fearless and Framed blog a long time know that I've had many experiences in my life that have made documentary storytelling photography come alive for me. You know, just little things like losing my grandparents that I was really, really close with, losing a best friend after high school, things like how I'm in this season in life where I am a mom of 2 kids that are almost 3 and almost 5, and I'm kind of in this like chaos state. Like it just feels like I'm constantly moving and constantly hustling. And I look back from before kids when Dave and I were dreaming of this season in life, dreaming of being in the forever home and just having kids and all of that. And I'm like, man, I would love to go back to that life just for a day because it was so calm. And so I really feel seasons in life, I think maybe more than some people. So details to me are elements of a photo that evoke a sense or a feeling or a memory. So a detail is not necessarily like a cup, which we'll talk about that story in a little bit. I have a story about a random cup. My walls are covered in memories. I wish that I could take my iMac around my house to show you. The photo that you see on the screen is actually, I have that printed in a frame. When I look at that photo, I remember my daughter, she was 3 at that time, almost 4, and it was a rainy day. And I just remember, like, she was jumping in puddles, just thrilled being outside after the rain. And I remember that energy that she had that day. And when I see those boots, it reminds me of, for one thing, that season, but also like I can even just hear the sound of that sloppy, muddy dirt road under her feet. So my clients consistently tell me they hire me because they believe that they're going to give me photos of blank, whatever whatever story they're in. They believe that I'm going to be able to give them photos that are true to the memory of that story. Clients recognize this really means that I've done a really great job at finding clients that match my vision and my voice as a photographer, which I talk about quite often, being the chef in your business, the professional, the ones where people come to you and trust in you rather than being the order taker and just trying to make everybody happy. So I think that details have been my way to really connect with my tribe or my village of clients, so to speak, and even the Fearless and Framed audience. So Max, let's get into your story.
Okay. So I think I'm a little delayed. Did you already flip the slide?
I did, yes. There is about a 30-second delay on
That's the
these,
story of my life. That's a detail of my life. I'm very type B. So basically, a lot of what I do started with me feeling like I kind of lost myself in the whole world of being a mom and a wife. And, everyone always says like, oh, my kids are the reason that I started photography. I just started, I bought my first DSLR, which I think is the majority of people's stories. And it's actually turned into something that like people talk down on, like, oh, a mom tag or whatever. And I think that's completely ridiculous because some of the best photographers in the world, and not just saying that like they produce the best art, but some of the most financially successful photographers in the world started like that. They had crazier stories than that, So I started as, I guess similarly, my kids pretty much were my inspiration. I did photography in college and I worked for a wedding photographer. Just getting some extra cash on the weekends when I was in college. And then I had my kids and I started taking pictures of them. And that's when I really learned a lot more about my camera and the capabilities and really started exploring it artistically. And it was the detail stuff that struck me. And at the time, studio stuff and picture perfect portrait type stuff was really, really popular. And I felt that I had to do that in order to be successful and in order for my pictures to have some sort of meaning. So I had like a little makeshift studio in my basement, and it was really embarrassing to look at. Like some people's in-home studios are really incredible, and mine was not one of those. So, and it didn't really speak to me. I didn't love what I was doing, and it wasn't enough for me. And, just like Marie said with, the little details of, her daughter and her boots, that's the stuff I wanted to remember and that I wanted to document. But I felt like I was alone in that no one wants pictures like that. I actually think I felt that way because most professionals or, the industry role models were saying that stuff. I couldn't understand why, because I was pretty much a consumer at the time. As much as I was professionally shooting, meaning I was getting paid $100 or $50 a year to shoot people's kids as I just started, I didn't want that stuff. I wanted the, real authentic feeling images and the detail stuff that I, used to shoot my kids, like, their little toes, and it wasn't even macro shots. It was them grabbing their toes and putting them in their mouth and stuff like that. So I really wanted to produce work from a photographer that I would hire that I never knew existed. Meaning I wanted to become my own photographer, like the ideal photographer for myself. I wanted to give to other people. And I, again, was told there's no market for that, but there is, they're out there. Even now you could see it's flourishing. It's a very flourishing market. Mm-hmm. There's so many conjoining worlds: documentary, fine art, portraiture mixed in with lifestyle and, just in-home shooting. That kind of stuff is really getting popular now. And I think it's really cool because it's always going to be different. Everyone's house is different. Everyone's dynamic is different, and everyone's details are different. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing is cohesion there. And I think I just started shooting the way I wanted to shoot, what I wanted to hire. I shot the way I would want to hire someone or how I wanted. And it's funny, it took me many years before I actually had, I still have yet to have someone come into my house and do an in-home photo shoot. Even though I preach about it and I love doing it, I still have yet, to have that. I've done many outdoor and on location shoots, and I always find the ones that I hang up are the ones that are the not popular ones that people would say, oh, no one will ever hang those up. Mm-hmm. It's that nostalgia. I want to look back and like basically feel that day. I want to remember the smell. I want to remember the temperature and, the way I heard my child laugh or cry, if I took a picture of a skinned knee and, it's just a rite of passage as a child, like that's a detail that's really important. So I think a lot of that comes into, later on when we discuss like what kind of details do people want. We're not mind readers. And again, not everyone is going to want the same kind of details. I feel like the most important stuff in a full gallery, like I say, like the meat and potatoes, is really your added details. Like in some galleries, I've always been told that there's filler. You need to add filler to give more images in a gallery. And I believe that the filler that we want to show you that's important to provide is like the meat and potatoes. It's the important stuff, the details. So that's kind of my story, and it's a little crazy and delayed because that's what I am.
And delayed.
I just can't. So that's pretty much my story.
I love that you sought out in your business to be the photographer that you would want for yourself. I think that's a really great piece of advice.
Yes. Yeah. So, and there's another thing, like we will get into pricing, but people always say hire, if you can afford yourself, you're not pricing enough. You're not high, your pricing is not high enough. And it's true, but I do think that there's a lot more that goes into this style that I think that there is a specific budget. We will talk about that later.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's such a good point too. So let's talk about what are details exactly. And so we've been talking about how details could be, it's an element within your image that evokes some sort of a feeling or a memory or whatever. What we wanted to do is just have just a couple of slides that just to clarify that when we're talking about details, it does not mean like you have to be taking gorgeous ring shots like this with a macro lens. You do not have to be really getting in close, which for the record, I was never a studio newborn photographer, and this was just a photo of my son's fingers, but it doesn't have to be these itty bitty details that are just a singular thing as the spotlight. So here's an example. It also does not have to mean like when you're thinking of details in terms of objects, we're not talking about a random object like a cup. However, if you take that cup and then you pair it with something, and that is just part of an equation that sort of you fill in the blank as you're shooting, you can make that boring singular object become a beautiful part of the story. So this photo, it's not some epic photo. It was part of a day in the life I shot of my family last year. But Max and I, when we were planning out this webinar, I could remember this. Like we were trying to think of somehow how we could explain what I'm about to explain. And I was able to go like in my memory to the exact day, June 5th, because I knew it was when I did that day in the life through last year's 7-Day Storyteller Challenge. And I was able to jump right to this image because of the story of this image. And basically what it is, and you can see in the bottom right corner, my son's mouth, he is a very, very demanding, needy child. I'm sure some of you are like, whose kid isn't? But in the mornings, like he has to have his milk right away. So I try to have it poured and waiting for him. Otherwise he throws a fit. So I remember that. He's still, even fast forward a year, is kind of like that, but it was worse then. And I think of that entire story of him coming out of his bedroom with me, because he was in a crib at the time, and we would go down the stairs and immediately like, I need my milk was what was happening. Another story that has to do with cups is this drawer filled with baby bottles. And this drawer would drive my husband and I crazy because we'd go to put the clean bottles away and it was always messed up like this. So the drawer wouldn't close most of the time. I've got stabbed in the hip a dozen times just walking past this drawer. So one day I took a photo of it. So it's not just about, oh, look at these bottles in a drawer. It's like, do you remember that time in our life when everything revolved around baby stuff everywhere? And this is just an example of that. So, so hopefully, I'd love to know if you go into the comments, whether below YouTube or in the Goodbye Posing Guide group, if that stuff makes sense to you, like pulling out versus like, it's not about just getting some singular object. It's not about having to just dial in and get just a body part. It's not about pulling out a macro lens. It's about pulling out an element of that scene to pull out a memory, a feeling, or an emotion. And then I just have a few other examples here. This is my son again earlier. He's still drinking out of a bottle. And the detail, I look at this and like just those PJs with the little raccoon looking up and him holding on to that blanket, like that, I just remember him having that feeling of security. He still carries around that blanket sometimes. I mean, he's almost 3. And then this one, this is where it is focused, the image is focused on human connection and interaction, but it's more than just a hug and a kiss. It's that story of this little girl was actually having a day just with her mom. It was a girls' day, and I documented it for them. And it started off with they were reading by the lake, and then we were in the bathroom here where she got a pedicure, and then we went to the library and to a coffee shop where they got donuts and stuff. So, but just this, like every little girl, I'm sure can remember those, like I see this and remember the days of being young myself after the bath, going out to our living room, sitting on the couch, and my mom painting my nails, and she had all these like flower and heart little decals. And like, that was such a good memory. And I feel like having a photo that is, yeah, it's just of fingers and feet, and it's not huggy and kissy, but there's a whole story that makes you feel good inside of that photo. And another one, just real quick, my Sundays are very often spent at home with the family, and my husband and I are wine drinkers. So this, I see this, and just like Max was saying, like this, I can feel like the temperature of what it feels like inside of our house. Any time of year, it's like 75 in my house. And then I see just the light, that rim light. I am very attracted to his jawline. So I see this and I just, like, I feel something when I see this, even though to you, you're probably like, really? I'm like, yeah, people probably are like, what the heck?
Because I think your husband's hot.
Thanks, yeah, he is. He's a hunk. I actually printed this photo out because I loved it so much. Will everybody get it? If I share it on Facebook, is it going to get 100+ likes? Probably not. But do I care? No, because this photo has meaning to me. And I think that
someone shot that photo for you.
Yeah.
That's what matters. You're the paying client.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So then I think that we lose sight of that sometimes, not so much that we shoot to get publicity, but sometimes we're so worried about putting that message out into the world through our posts because we're afraid the photo's not going to get the feedback that we'd like it to get, that then your marketing message is offset because you're trying to post photos based on what's going to get the most engagement rather than posting the photos that are attracting the people that are sentimental and want to feel these types of emotions and memories in their photos. So here are some types of details to consider: human details, object details, details to evoke a sense, details to evoke an emotion, and details to evoke a memory. So any questions so far? Pop into one or the other area, the YouTube comments or the group.
I think it's a little delayed for them.
Yeah, so I'll give them just a moment.
Maybe we can take like a little breather.
Yeah, I know. Every time there's like a tech issue, I'm like, I gotta catch up. I gotta catch up for all the time that I've lost, the time that I've wasted for everybody. But But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and refresh the YouTube because see if there's anybody there now. That is showing we have 72 people watching right now. So I'm glad to see that more people got on. That's almost double. So
my last slide right now is the one with the toenail painting.
Really? I just refreshed YouTube and I see the detailed photos clients will purchase and the ones they won't.
Let me see. I could just refresh. Let's see. Okay, now I have it. And we just got 2 comments. One about my story. Okay. Yes. I love that. I love connecting. We are all people and we're all doing the same thing. Trying to just get through life and remember it the best way we can. My story is not some, fairy tale story. And I'm just, a living, breathing human like everyone else. And I think that's also where we get lost a little bit, in what's expected of us as humans, as people, as moms, wives, as well as photographers. I opened my studio and it was automatically oh, you must be doing great. I've gotten comments like that. Oh, you're just this big, amazing photographer. And I'm I really don't. I struggle the same way. I cry over, paying bills. And sometimes I want to hire a photographer that's out of my price range when I'm preaching that we need to, and I have to save and, so, tying this whole thing in, the details, they're authentic to us. They're true. They're real. These are not, pretty little setups.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're very organically happening, not you're bringing all this stuff into the scene just to make something happen.
Right.
So the next section we're going to cover is detailed photos clients will purchase and ones they won't. So I'm going to let Max go ahead and cover this first section here since it's her awesome image and give the backstory to this because I loved the story.
So I'm just refreshing so that I'm on the same page as everyone. I'm which image? Okay. So the image that we're looking at is the Nora one, right?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. Okay. So actually Marie, when she was emailing with me about, our stories and our perceptions of our clients, because again, Marie and I shoot very differently, but we have the same love for what we shoot, and it's people and it's human interaction and it's authenticity. I'm sure that there are some detail images that she would take at her sessions that really balance her session well, but would not balance my session. She's more of a fly on the wall, and I'm more I'll direct a little bit more, even though it's still very natural and still very, honest to the couple or the family and their energy. Basically their details can happen very subtly where you wouldn't even pick up on it as a detail. And that's great. This image here, it's just kind of the whole scene. Mom and dad with their baby, and her name is Nora, and they're clearly in her nursery. To me, that name on the wall, that little bit of flower art, those are details to me that matter to them. If you also notice on Dad's wrist, there is his hospital bracelet. And I specifically asked them, oh, do you want to take that off? I'm very much about taking off scrunchies or hair ties on the wrist, stuff like that. When I think maybe if Marie was shooting, she would just keep it because it's very fly on the wall, which is great. But when I'm setting up a pose or a direction like this, I usually want to kind of eliminate those things. One reason being people sometimes come back and say, oh, you know what, I really should have taken my hair tie off my wrist. And other reason being, maybe it just doesn't fit that scene. But I specifically asked Dad if he wanted, and she still had her hospital bracelet on too. I said, do you want to take these off? They said, no, we're keeping them on. We kept them on specifically for the photo shoot. I shoot a lot of newborns. This was a first for me. And I really honestly thought it was great and wonderful. So I really wanted to get that in there. That was very important to them. It was part of their experience. Sure, everyone that gives birth has their own birth experience. A lot of people give birth in the hospital and they have hospital bracelets, but to them it meant a lot, and it's a little detail. So the cohesion of them being in, her nursery, as well as him wearing his bracelet from her birth with the directed family shot and pose is what is very, very meaningful to them. I might look at this image and be like, oh, that's really cute. But they're going to look back on that image in a year when maybe her nursery is completely gone, or maybe she's been standing up ripping those letters off the wall, and they're going to say, oh my goodness, do you remember that? Do you remember when we had her room set up like that? That kind of stuff. So to me, this very subtle background detail that compositionally just looks pretty and artistic is a very meaningful detail. So that's when Marie asked me to pick out some detail photos, people might say that's not a detail, that's just normal and part of it. That's a detail. That's what we're talking about. Details that matter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also this sets you apart from other photographers, because so many would be like, hey, let's take this bracelet off, or they would eliminate anything of the background and zoom right in onto the client. So I think that just doing this, again, just sets you apart, and that it helps your pricing in a way, because people are paying for something different than everybody else. So when we were talking about this topic and why would clients choose a detail image, we kind of summed it up into a couple of things that we have heard, in that, some clients have said that they don't want pictures of them all over the home. Like, it feels really weird. They prefer details that help them tell their story, custom art. And one thing I want to add here is that sometimes as photographers, we need to remember that sometimes there's this underlying need that clients need that they aren't able to see because of their want. Like, they want images that they think are great. They want images that they're happy with, but sometimes they don't understand what needs to happen in order for them to get that result. And as photographers, that's where our marketing messaging, as well as our client communication before the sessions, is so vital to making some of these pieces fit together. And you get clients that see this image like this one and are blown away, like, I never would have thought to leave these things in, because the client's instinct would be to get just a photo of their faces. So anyway, I get off on tangents really easily. The next slide that I'm moving on to is a photo of a line of trees in between. This is actually all one lake, but it looks like two here. And I did a session in October with a couple. So I really like to work with couples, and it was an engagement session, and we did a day in the life. And one of the things that they do frequently is start their day by going around the lake on their pontoon boat. So as they're cruising around the lake, this is one of the views that they see. And I just picked up on it because it was beautiful, and there was all of the foggy, misty stuff on the lake behind the trees, because it was that early and freezing in the morning, I might add. And instead of printing a whole bunch of canvases and things of them, this was actually the biggest canvas that they ordered. And it's because one day they're not going to live in that condo anymore. That was their first place together. They're going to move on, but yet they'll see this, and it won't just take them back to this spot on the lake. It will take them back to that whole season in life of getting that first place together, planning their wedding together. They actually met at the workplace, and I can't remember, I don't remember if they got laid off or if the place closed down, but anyway, they weren't working there, and they had to find new jobs. So they went through all of these things together in that place. And this photo is going to take them back to a whole host of memories. And so I think that's why they chose it. So here's what we want to talk to you about deciding details as far as what clients are going to go for and what ones that they won't. Does the detail play into the story? If so, how? Will the detail help your clients remember this season in life? And then also, should the detail be in the spotlight or be the accent? So accent meaning, if you think of Max's photo of that cute little couple with their newborn, The details were part of the accents of the image. Like you first see the couple and the new baby, but all of these details are sort of around them. Or is the detail like the spotlights, like some of like the cup images that I was showing? That's what I mean by that. So here's an action task from this section. Observe your home and people you love to determine detail ideas. I think that's where you're going to do best in getting started before you can serve other people in this. Really hone into the details in your life. Think about all of your senses. Think about your feelings. Think about just what is going on in this life. Like think about if you were to fast forward a year or 5 years from now and you were to think of 2016, what are some of the things you would think, what was happening then? And then try to photograph
And
that.
remember, human details count. It's not just you looking around your house and saying,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you know what, I really love these flowers.
Right.
Or something.
Exactly.
It's things that are happening, acts, motion,
Mm-hmm.
things that are going on can be detail oriented.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So again, if you're still with us, go into the Goodbye Posing Guide group and ask questions in there, or ask questions in the YouTube channel as well.
Do you see any questions or anything in the YouTube channel?
I
can't see
haven't.
it. And I
No.
know everyone is in the Goodbye Posing Guide
Yeah,
page.
that's true. I didn't even think about that.
I mean, I could also post to anyone who can't comment. You can comment under my Instagram posts about this.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't follow me, it's at Max Gray Photog on Instagram. And then my last post about this, where it's the family in the kitchen shot on my Instagram, you can comment under there if you'd like.
Yeah.
So I'm watching closely. Don't worry. I will answer you, I promise.
So the photo that's actually up on the screen right now ties into what we were just talking about human details. So this was just like a split second of this mom like bending down. They were sitting, but and the little girl was on her lap, and she bent down to hug her daughter. And so you can see that it's humans that were here. Like it's all about that sweet little face absorbing that hug from her mom, and then mom's hair falling down over it. So it was part of like a lot of this image had to do, and why this works, I think, had to do just with the framing in and of itself. But you can see there's a few different details there between mom's hands and just the expression that the little girl has and that moment of the mom embracing her. So
the hair is fantastic. The bracelet, like, there's so much detail going on. Like, I also think details in this kind of photography can exist not tangibly also, where feelings, details of feelings can come out.
Yeah. I also love that I'm so close to them that mom is one of those beautiful women that is just got these gorgeous freckles everywhere. And I love that I can see that in her complexion there. Like, you know, like aside from just the hairstyle, like, you know who that is right away just from seeing that. Like at least her family and her loved ones will know. So even though you don't see her face, like, you know who that is because it's part of her. So moving on, how details set you apart and impact pricing. So one of the things that Max and I were talking about is we feel like we see these galleries that look sort of like this, where the photographer is so focused on the client and what the client is doing and in that moment that they don't step in further to get details, or they're not like absorbing some of the details from the environment within that image. So, and this is an example of that. Like, you look at the photo and it's just about the client and what she's doing. Same thing here. It's about this little boy snuggling his mom. Now, these images are great and they work for that purpose, but if the gallery is full of these images, you're really missing out on some opportunities to really pack your galleries with some emotion. So then if you look at images like this, so just imagine like if my gallery was full of mom and baby, or of this mom, pregnant mom here, just of them 3/4 of the way up, what they're doing, their faces, you're missing out. Then you look at an image like this where it's less about their faces and like what the one individual person or as the group is doing. There's so many details in this. So this is actually a photo of my 2 kids. This was a couple years ago, and we were at the family cabin, and my cousins, the older 2 there, are sitting on a mattress with my kids on the floor of the family cabin. And I look at this and I see Levi is chewing on the tag of a baseball cap, and they're playing with this soccer ball, and I see the fan in the background, and I just, like, I see this, and I remember that summer of that particular vacation up to the family cabin where it was hot. Levi was crawling around everywhere that is not baby proofed at all. And so it's just different. Like it's a totally different feeling that comes out of this rather than if I would have like just stepped in and just got a couple of them together as an interactive type of an image. Like this just sets an entire different mood. So it just adds another like feature to your gallery. Same type of a thing here where it's just a different angle. Instead of getting the whole family just dead on, like I'm really zoomed in on that, on the baby. I shouldn't say zoomed in, but focused in on the baby who's not really a baby. He had just turned 1, with the dog. So there's layers to this image that are details between mom and dad and the dogs, even though the focal point is the boy. I could have just stepped in and just got the little boy himself, but by purposely letting, even though they're not in focus, the dogs and the parents in the frame, like this is, again, going back to like that whole season in life thing when they are just this sweet little family with a 1-year-old in their first home together. They've actually moved out of this home since then. So I think that looking at this probably brings back a lot of memories from this time. So, and Max, I'll let you take it away with your image here.
Just refreshing.
All right.
Alrighty. Okay. Oh my goodness, I love this. Okay, so that is like a mobile hanging above like the changing area. And that changing area is also the dresser. She actually put the mobile out, thought it was super cute. Just, there was nothing super personal to it except for the fact that she just wanted to add decor to their child's room, which I think we all can relate to. Funny thing is like you really didn't sleep in that room for very long. We all do that. Like we have to have the perfect nursery and the prettiest, paint color and decor, and then they never really spend any time in there or they destroy the room. That has since come down because he would, climb up, grab it, whatever. But I saw it, and instead of I shot it from few different angles, mainly not because of the mobile, but because of what they were doing. I shot behind them, showing like her back, changing his diaper. I got more of the front of the dresser. I wanted the mobile hanging down along with the wall decor. And then I was like, you know what, I want to kind of shoot through that, just to make it different and interesting. And I don't even care at this point if people see that and don't know what it is, if it just looks like some little random bokeh fuzzy balls hanging. It's kind of like, what is that? But I just think it adds a little bit more texture and artistic feel. And I think in my head, how I think now that I've been doing this for a while, is if she was going to do like a gallery wall of prints, that would be like one that would be added in to show a different perspective and a different, depth of field of that element that is very colorful and full of life. So I wanted it to be a little bit more dramatic if she wanted to get 2 or 3 prints to put on a wall or something like that. And, he's looking up and it's a different perspective of her son. And, she's thinking when she sees this image that, gee, I never really stepped back and observed my family as like an out-of-body experience. And I feel like that kind of gives you that feel, especially shooting through that like mobile hanging down. It just adds an element of tangibility to the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of it just being a, bird's eye view wide shot. So that's like where my thought process was coming in. And I really appreciate all the other details within that image. One human detail, now that's an object detail, the human detail. And I was actually just discussing this on your board with Holly, looking at his older sister sitting there. And looking at her hands, the mother's hands, that to me, those are human details that are adding to the image as well. So combining it, it's very personal and it's very detail oriented and it adds to the story. And you also have to think when you're shooting details, not to think, oh, well, this is all details. Even these diapers here. Does it add to the story or does it take away from it? And I felt like in this instance, it added to it because it was such a creative looking mobile and what was going on in the scene. So that's pretty much it for that image. I can't say that entire thought process at that very moment was what went through my head because that would be like, really, I probably would have completely missed the moment. But I saw it and I said, this is cool. Let me try it. In the end, we don't have to share it. We don't have to show it. We don't have to put it in a gallery. Go get out of your comfort zone. Do something different. Even if it wound up not being as you thought it would be, you tried it. You might surprise yourself.
That's such a good point.
That will also help you open your eyes to more details in other homes as well.
Love that point. I do see some questions, so I'm going to go ahead and ask some of these. I didn't realize for some reason they're not posting in order. They're random. I have been looking at the top, but there's questions in the middle. So I'm going to go through a few of these. So back to the top, Kylie's asking, does your pre-session questionnaire give you clues to the details? How do you ask the right questions? For me, I'm going to say I will be talking about that part when we get to my workflow. What about you, Max?
I don't have a pre-session questionnaire.
So, yeah, see how different we are? It's pretty wild.
I don't want one. You know what I do? The only thing I ask for sometimes, and it depends on how I feel about the email exchange, is sometimes I'll ask for a picture of their children, of them as a family, just to get a vibe. And again, it's very funny because I had a client who I completely misread. I'm kind of going off topic, but I think this is kind of important. I misread her by the image she sent me, and it was shot by a professional. And I was like, oh, this is the kind of person she is. I kind of judged her, not in a bad way. I just made a judgment on what kind of family I thought they were. And they were nothing like that. And in my head, I'm like, this is what we're doing when we're photographing people. Are we just taking a picture of a body or a few bodies together with some clothes on and some happy faces? Or are we shooting these people, their energy, and their life? What is it that we are doing? And there were no details in that image. Not that there had to be, that was a portrait, but I really feel like details can really bring out the authenticity. So going back, I don't really do a pre-session questionnaire, which I'll explain when we get to the workflow. So I think that will be interesting on that question.
So we also have Whitney said, you ladies are awesome, but you already knew that. So thank you, Whitney.
I'm like, what? We're awesome, but what?
Yeah. Kalila, hey girl. No question yet. Just making a conscious effort to be more aware of my day-to-day surroundings, hopefully making it a habit to see the details. This is great. Thanks. Natasha, yes, it probably is a little bit blurry in the YouTube because so I use this service called Easy Webinar, which is awesome, but they use Google Hangouts. So you're watching this stream from Google Hangouts, and I think it just shows things slightly blurry most of the time. And I see Karen says, these are the type of pictures I pull out of my parents' picture boxes that hold the biggest stories behind them that I get to show my own girls. I love that.
I love that too.
So, and Nicole says, total sense and really makes it so much more emotional. And Shannon says, I can see the details clients will buy slide. I'm not really sure. I can see the details, clients will buy slide. Oh, she's telling me what slide she can actually see on the screen. Okay. And then Brianna said, want to remember looking beautiful and perfect, especially for, say, an engagement session. How does that work with more of a documentary style? They might not look like that every day. So my response to you there, because I've shot a few couples and they're actually my favorite to work with. So I have, if you go to the Fearless and Framed blog, and I can send you the link later if you want to email me or something, at Marie@fearlessandframed.com. But on the Fearless and Framed blog, I have a day in the life of an engaged couple there. Part of the reason why couples are going to come to you and say, like, they're going to like put the brakes on this type of a photo session would be probably because they're not educated in the sense of what a documentary session can do for them and how it can transform them on the emotional side of things. Maybe not right now, but later. So for example, in my documentary sessions for couples, I mean, I always, even with families, will usually do like an everybody smiling, looking at the camera type of a thing. But no, not all couples want this full gallery of them, image after image, posed in beautiful or kissing and hugging. The clients that I attract into my business through my marketing messaging really are coming to me because they want to remember what their life looks like today. So, and a lot of that is reflected sometimes, not always, but sometimes I'm able to draw people in when I talk about where I'm at in life now, and I tell them like, and my life is so different now with 2 kids and I'm in a different house. When I think back of that season when I was engaged, like I would love some photos to show my kids of our first home together, and like the kitchen where our like highlight of our week would be making dinner in that kitchen with some wine and some music. We tried, like, that's when we first learned how to make Thai food together, like all this stuff, and having a photo session that would remind us of those things would be so much more meaningful than image after image of us hugging and kissing and looking beautiful. Not to say that those images are
with our men anyway.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I know. So hopefully that answers your question there. I'll look back in there in a minute. Let's move on. And Max, you can go into this image.
I actually wanted to just mention one question from the Goodbye Posing Guide group. There was 2 of them. Holly, she said, do you find that clients buy more human details rather than object details? And I answered on there saying that I basically feel as though people appreciate human and object the same, but in a different way. They love them both, but they look at them differently. You know, with products and stuff that we put on the wall and stuff, I feel like they use the object details meshed in with the human details in a different way, like more of like a flow. And some people, I find, if they're putting like a storyboard on their wall, they want those details, the textures and colors to kind of match where they're putting their images and their decor of their house. It's wall art, essentially. You know, we spend time picking out paint colors. I don't know if you want to weigh in on that.
I was just going to say, I actually don't push a lot of wall art. I sell a lot of albums. And to me, like when I have an album spread, I wish I could just like pop one up because I just created a wedding album like the other day. And I have, for example, images of they did a first look, this wedding couple. So I have images of them looking at each other and then like just sort of like details from the scene. And when I'm laying that out on an album, it creates so much balance when you have some details that are just objects and then like details that are of their hands touching. Or for example, she was in tears and I have this image that's like just barely the back of his head and you can see the tears welling up in her eyes and then her hands on his shoulders. Like I was really close up into that. And so rather than having like face, here, having these mixed details it gives it balance. And so for me, it's not that they're choosing one or the other, but it's I'm actually like blending them all in together.
I actually wanted to show just two spreads from an album that I have. Like for here, and I think you have even seen this, that it was in our little thing. That a lot of toys. There is a human in there, but the main details are of the toys and stuff. So I think this is kind of helping tie in all the other details of him as the human, like his hair and stuff like that. So I like to have it as like a flow. It helps. I feel like my object details help a flow, and Mom appreciates that image just as much as the one of her son's face close. And then I have outdoor one where it's like a whole big image of like them, and then over here there's all the details like the shoe, their greenery in their garden, the bucket and like the pail and all that stuff. I feel like, again, it's a flow, and like there's a balance there. So it's not that I can just choose one or the other in terms of object versus human.
Yeah, it makes them want to get more of their images.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And then quickly, last question. I know that we need to move forward, but Sam says, when you're shooting, do you find that you're shooting more like 50-50 details and face shoots, or is the ratio more one way or the other? I actually I don't ever really put like a formula or a mathematical equation on that kind of thing. I never think like, okay, I need to do some face shots and some human stuff, and let me just go around and then do like, the object stuff. I kind of just go with my flow, which when we get to that, I'll explain. And then whatever's present there is how I document it.
Yeah, and I'm the same. I feel like I constantly pivot. I'm like, okay, I got a couple of my clients doing whatever they're doing. What else can I incorporate? And then I go back to my clients. Like, it's just this constant scan, I guess.
Yes.
So rather than thinking about it too much.
This image. Okay. So this is the image that when Marie and I got together discussing this, this image most inspired me in this, a very detail-oriented image, which you guys might be saying, like, I don't really see a lot of details in that. But if you're thinking like me, maybe the detail that's standing out to you the most is the fact that the little toddler is holding an apple above her baby sister. I feel like images like these, you can see, and the feet, her presence over the baby. Lots of action, rambunctious feeling with a mixture of serenity and new life. And I think a lot of people have taken pictures like this, where like this is nothing new. A picture, a bird's eye view of like, the baby and toddler doing something. And I feel as though if the apple was not in her hands, the power of the story behind this image would be much less. It wouldn't be as powerful. I think, and the point is that detail is what gave so much power to this image. And that's also what inspired me to take the shot. I was really at this moment focusing just on the baby. And she came in, was eating her apple. She was like picking at it. You see there's like a little hole in it, her thumb is stuck in there. And I was like, no, this is the image I'm gonna get. I will go back to baby. So that goes back to that question from Sam, the 50-50, like I was doing a little portrait shot of the baby. And then I kind of stopped because something was happening there that was really authentic and tangible. And I'm like, I have to get this. And this was one of the favorites of her gallery out of, I guess, like 80 something images. She just loved this. And I love it. It's one of my most favorite newborn pictures I've ever taken. I've taken a lot of newborn pictures. So that detail really is what, gave such strength and content to this image. And it's all about the content.
Yeah, I love that photo. I totally agree that if that apple wasn't there, it would just be a totally different thing. So Max had added in, like we were talking about pricing, and I'm going to add, if you can see the slide, I'll let you continue here because this is where you shine. I'm like, pricing? I don't know.
I feel like Okay, side note about pricing. I think we all can agree at this very moment, and I hope that everyone's like, yes, what?
Yeah.
That pricing scares the shit out of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it still scares me too. I mean, the first thing that comes to my head when I get an email or any type of inquiry is, all right, what kind of deal could I give them? I just want to make the sale. And I haven't even read it yet. You know, and phone calls are even worse because they put you on the spot. Hi, I'm just calling to hear about your pricing. And it's like, well, I can give you 10% off. Like, I feel like that's like always on the tip of my tongue. And it's silly, it shouldn't be. But it is. Let's all just admit it. You know, it's not easy. I think that photography is a luxury, especially this style. Whether it's Marie's, you know, very documentary type of style, or it's my more like in-home directed kind of somewhat lifestyle. I really am not a fan of that word anymore. I feel like it's overused.
I hate labels.
I hate labels. That is not okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I say it because you all know what I'm talking about. I feel that is much more of a luxury because it's very, very custom. Like, you know, Marie sends out a pre-shoot questionnaire. Like, that's time consuming. She's studying these people. Like, this is where, you know, you have to, that's time, that's value. You have to explain that to people. And I think kind of going back to the kinds of images that clients think they want, we have to convince them that this is what they want. We also have to convince them that we are worth something more, you know, than just $10. Like, we're not, you know, the local portrait studio in the mall. So honestly, I think charge whatever you want, not what they want, what you want. I think that's very, very, very important. And if that's you feeling comfortable at charging $300 when maybe I might say, no, you're worth $1,000, then charge $300, because eventually you will learn that you will have to raise, because it's a simple formula when it comes to cost of doing business. So for now, charge what you're comfortable doing. I think confidence goes a much farther way than logistics and financials and numbers. People want comfort. They want to see that you're confident in that price. And heck, you might become confident in that price and you see that more people are hiring you, and you might say, you know what, I'm raising because I'm good now. I feel good. I tested the waters. I'm going for this. Like I say, you're offering a very unique experience. So when you're pricing, I don't think there's anything wrong with maybe pricing a little differently per shoot, because we are not in the business of you're getting this exact amount of time on this exact backdrop at this certain time of day and this certain pose. That photography is beautiful. And I think that it's a different kind of photography that people value, but it might not fit the one size fits all mold. Like, ours might not fit that one size fits all mold. So I feel like the unique experience also plays a huge part in how you're pricing. I like to offer a different range. I basically have a few packages on my website, and I kind of stick there. But sometimes I see that people come to me and they just want wall art. They don't want digitals. Not everyone wants digitals. I know everyone thinks you do, and I think the majority of people do. But I have people that are like, you know what? I don't want 80 images that are sitting on my computer. You know, I want like 10 or 6 big images printed and put on my wall. So I might have to price that accordingly. Like I said, nostalgia. Sorry, I'm just reading this and it's so small. My eyes are really bad. Your need to communicate through your marketing and selling. Basically, people need to know why they are investing that much. They need to see a value on it. You know, when you drive by a nail salon, I don't know about you. Sometimes I'll say, you know what, that nail salon, it doesn't really look too nice. Then I'll find another one that's like super, super spa-like, and I see why their prices are higher. It's like I have an understanding. Heck, I'm just making that assumption based on how it looks. Maybe they're not as good as the other salon, but it's how you present yourself is a big deal in your pricing too. For the actual dollar amount, there has to be actual value. You know, what is it like? I like to say that I'm selling the experience. I'm not just selling pictures or, you know, a session or something like that. There has to be value there. When it comes to prints, again, I keep going back to that. I will custom design your wall, your actual wall. I will custom design it. So there has to be value there. Like I said, it's a luxury. This is not some sort of necessity for people. And you have to determine that value. You have to say, you know what? Well, the reason, and people always compare you. Well, why are you so much money? I always like to give the response in a nicer way usually, but I like to say to photographers straight up is if someone says to me, you know, what is it that you have that Joe Smith down the block doesn't have and he's half your price? I say, Joe Smith doesn't have me.
Mm-hmm. True.
You are valuable. You matter. And you know what? That's fine. If you want to pay for Joe Smith, that's Joe Smith. But my value is me and what I provide, and this is what I'm showing you. And believe it and own it. That doesn't mean I don't think that it's okay, that it's not okay to, you know, give discounted sessions. I think that's totally fine. You have to be comfortable with that. So that's a little, you know, picking the surface of pricing. There's a lot that goes into it, especially here.
Especially too, it's not just dollars and figures. It a lot, like you started to say a little bit about marketing, and I am a huge marketing nerd, not just marketing like is in the process, but
I
like
need you to market for me.
Yeah, I
love
love like really understanding who a client is and basically tuning into who they are and driving them to booking or driving them into purchasing a product or whatever based on their individual needs. And I'm putting out, like I have like a typical idea of who my dream client is. And when you're putting that out into your messaging properly, not just posting photos on Facebook and calling it a day, but you're really going through a marketing system, you will be able to, you're just, even your words will attract, like people will be like, I want to work with her because what she's saying is speaking my language, the images that, and like understanding the why behind the images are speaking my language. And I believe that she is going to give me blank, whatever that transformation that you're trying to offer them when it comes to like what they're actually getting out of the photos, because it's more than just the photos. So if you have any questions on that, definitely pop into wherever you're able to comment. We have a couple of action.
A lot of questions on that one.
Yeah, did you? Yeah, we have.
You know, I'm saying there might be.
There might be. Couple of action tasks. If you are not focused on details at all in your sessions right now, I want you to think about if all of a sudden you were able to add a series of images with details, how would you feel about adding X amount to your pricing, knowing you're giving clients more of an in-depth story? Like think about giving yourself a raise by adding more value into your sessions right now. Are you currently ready to increase your pricing, or do you need to get into the practice of incorporating details in your sessions, which if you're like, I have no idea how, we've got you covered. You just gotta stick around till the end because we've got some more to tell you there. So I'm gonna skip that question areas. We've got a couple more sessions. We have one more section, and we're like an hour and 10 minutes in. So we're gonna go through our workflows really quick so you can understand like how you get details while shooting clients. So hopefully you guys will be able to walk away with two like step-by-step types of plans from two different photographers at how we look for details while we're shooting. So Max, go ahead and begin with yours. I know you've got that delay. And if you want, since the text is so small in the video, if you need me to, I'm looking right at my PowerPoint, so it's like big and clear to me.
Yeah, why don't you, I was gonna say, why don't you just like give me the bullet points and I'll like elaborate a
exactly. All right. So Max's workflow. I tell clients a basic idea of what to wear in terms of color and patterns, what photographs well and what doesn't, and then I let them lead. I request clients to submit a snapshot of the family before the session. At the session, I like to initiate the conversation, get on the same level as their children, observe what's around, and maybe strike up a conversation based on what seems to interest them. Then ask one of the kids for a home tour and pick out personal areas to shoot in, plus observe the light. The entire time I'm looking for details that I could possibly use creatively. This is my version of quote unquote props. I then generally start with the entire family and their candid shots. This gets me family images and at the same time gets people comfortable. From there, I proceed onto each room of importance. I try to limit my rooms to the ones people spend the most time in. While I am documenting them, I am documenting their energy and interaction, which provides wonderful human details. So then we have a slide that basically says her workflow, Max's workflow plan includes family images, closed in human detail images, individuals of parents with kids, individuals of the kids, each doing things that are meaningful to them, and then sibling interaction. This flow helps lead me into important areas of the home and focusing on important and key dynamics, which produces a lot of detail content. So,
yes.
Anything else you want to add?
Touching on that as a whole, I do a lot of directing, as you can see. But I do it in such a way that feels natural and flowy to them. Directing in terms of where I want them sitting with the light, the best flattering angles, because I do my very own version of portraits in the home. As you can see, I think the picture was a few slides back of the family in the kitchen sitting on the counter with the dogs on the floor. That's my version of like a family portrait. Now, that's not a natural look for them, but they are in a very natural, lifelike environment that they're comfortable in, that they love. She has a lot of pride in her kitchen. Who doesn't spend the most time in their kitchen? Whether it's like a tiny, tiny little kitchen or a massive kitchen, it's always where people congregate. And it just was something cool and different for a family portrait. So right there, I do a lot of directing, and there's a lot of details associated with that, such as their chairs and whatever else, decor or anything like that. So as you can see, my flow has a lot of direction and intention that's going on, like child guiding me through the house. I like to pick out rooms that they're most comfortable in. Now, again, Marie might be using everything wherever they happen to go. Me, I'm picking 2 or 3 specific rooms on purpose to focus on, but it's the rooms that they spend most of their time in that they are most comfortable in, so I can get that most authentic feel. So there's intention behind all of that. And my directing or posing is as just basically to show authenticity. It's to help make them look a little bit more natural when they don't feel very natural being photographed by a stranger.
Yeah. Awesome. So if you guys have any questions on Max's workflow, pop into the question areas and we will answer some more questions in just a little bit. I'm going to jump into my workflow here. So a little bit different than Max's. My sessions always begin with questionnaires and conversation. Like, this is a vital part of my shooting because I feel like the more I know my clients prior to the session, the more fired up I am about the shoot. So for example, I have a few different questionnaires, and I always send them over and tell the couples or the families that I know these are probably overkill, but the more that I get back from you, the more, like, the better I'm going to be able to come up with a game plan for our session. So I really like to I don't photograph primarily in the home. I really try to build a session that's based on something going on in the client's lives that they're going to remember. So, for example, I did a session in Hawaii with Kalila, if she's still listening, where this couple was a newlywed couple, had just moved to their first home together in Hawaii, and it was on the ocean. And one of the things that they do frequently is have dinners outside where they cook together and they share a meal watching the sunset on the north shore of Oahu Island. And so from the questionnaire, they could have came to me and said, hey, we want a session of us. And the questionnaires help me drive like what that session is going to look like. I don't always use this approach, but when I find that for me, when I'm photographing adults especially, if I'm at their home, they're going to stare at me like, what are we supposed to be doing? So I have to drive them to some sort of a game plan, even though it's not like, all right, from 8 to 9, we're doing this, and from 9 to 9:30, we're doing this. It's not like that, but it's to sort of give some general authentic and genuine things for them to be doing, so they're not staring at me like, what are we supposed to be doing? So the questionnaires help me also. I really like the idea. It's really important to me to photograph mannerisms and personality traits that the other people are going to recognize. So for example, I could go to my mom's house and photograph her just, you know, doing whatever in her house, sitting there, I don't know. But in my brain, like when I think of my mom, like I think of her in this jean jacket with Mickey Mouse on the back, carrying around a bottle of Mountain Dew. So if I have a client fill out a questionnaire that tells me like some things off the top of their head that remind them of like what they think about when they think of the other person, that helps me pick up and look for those details. So going back to that session, the newlywed couple, I have this personality worksheet that I have them fill out, and the husband in several places of these questionnaires talked about his wife's radiant smile. So I knew I had to really look for an opportunity to get a photo of her big, beautiful smile during this session, because that image would be super powerful to him. So to me, like I start with that, and then I determine a session plan. So when somebody comes to me, I don't go, all right, let me have your retainer. I'll send you a contract that has a date on it, and we'll go from there. Like they send me their retainer. I do have them fill out a contract or sign it, but the date I actually add as an addendum later, because I do a brainstorm session with my clients after I get the questionnaire, after I get the retainer, after I get the contract. I go through all of that information, and then I map out like what that day is going to look like, and then I suggest to them, I think we're going to need about 4 hours for this, or I think we're going to need 8 hours for this. So even when they're filling out their contract, they don't entirely know which package. Like I'll be like, all right, I'm thinking you're probably going to need this one, but quite often that might change. So when I get to the session, I always have a little pep talk with them and say, all right, you guys are going to like, this is what I kind of just say, like, I have no expectations. I'm going to talk to you throughout the session. This isn't going to be like I'm some stranger in the corner, like weird photographing you. I hang out with them like I'm a friend. And when I'm talking to them, I have my camera in my hand, but I have it down. And my clients are always doing something. So I don't show up in their home or at, you know, going out on the boat or whatever. Like they know what they are doing. So another example, and I saw the girl that was asking about, I'm sorry, I forget her name, Brianna, who was asking about couples. Ebony posted the link to that blog post in the YouTube channel. That particular session, from their questionnaires, I learned that this couple takes the boat ride in the morning. They often will then come back, have breakfast, do chores. So basically, like, I have a really great idea of what their day typically looks like. And I'm like, that's what I want you guys to be doing. So that's my direction, is do this stuff that we've talked about, do this stuff that I've learned. And then when I'm there, I follow them around and photograph them doing those things, looking for, constantly scanning the room for details, opportunities. Also, of course, like the moments and interaction and reaction that's going on between them. When I see a detail opportunity, I will determine if it should be the main subject of the image or if it should be just a part of the frame, like an accent in the background or the foreground. I have a conversation with my clients throughout. And then if I ever feel, and this happens a lot because I like to talk, if I am distracting them because I'm talking a lot, or if they do feel like they're sort of in between going from the boat and then having breakfast, and then they're like, we're still talking in the living room, but I know we're like we need to get some of our chores around the house done or whatever's going on. I have learned my best secret to get them back into doing whatever it is they would normally be doing if I wasn't there is to just step away. When you become a part of their focus, I will then just, sometimes I'll just walk into another room and see if I can photograph them like through some really cool different framing elements, or I'll just lie and be like, I gotta go change my lens and be gone for a little bit, and they will start talking with one another, and before you know it, they kind of forget about you and they'll move on to whatever's next. So when I'm solely shooting my clients and not looking to the environment, I'm just constantly moving 360 degrees for watching connection and touch and things like that. So I wanted to add that into there because I think it's important to know that it's not just all about standing in front of the clients or near the clients and focusing on them. Like constantly move around them, because you'll, like, from one angle you might have the TV in the background and you move around and you're like, oh my gosh, there's some really cool stuff on the wall that I can add in right here. So
Details.
Yeah, details. My workflow plan includes opening, transition, and closing images. If any of you are in the 7-Day Storytellers Challenge, you know what I'm talking about. Since I'm going in there with a predetermined story that I'm trying, like a photojournalist, I am trying to photograph for my clients. I try to have like images that show them moving from one room to the next or whatever, so the gallery as a whole makes sense like a story. I try to incorporate environmental details. I look for group photo opportunities, which is fully undirected. And I had a photo that's popping into my mind. Like, I don't care what everybody's doing as long as they're in my frame. Individual photo opportunities, and then individual like relationships, like mom and daughter, siblings, things like that. I'm always trying to make sure I pair those up. Mannerisms, like the way that her hair falls or the way that he smiles at her. Like, I really, really observe my clients to try to pick up on that as best I can in the short amount of time that I'm there. Sometimes the questionnaires reveal some of those things, and then I try to watch for it. Connection and reaction images. And for me, my workflow helps me complete my mission, which is to make a story from their perspective come to life from their images. So I don't necessarily want to be a photojournalist that steps into their world and tells their story the way that I see it, through like having that pre-session lineup of things that I do. It helps me to tell their story from their perspective. I hope that makes sense. So if you have any questions on my workflow, again, ask questions. We've got some action tasks for you. Before your next shoot, pre-visualize what details may be possible to achieve. Should they be the shining star or the accent? Keep these in mind as you shoot your clients and look for opportunities to execute the photo. So we're not sure why you showed up today to learn about details and how to get these details into your sessions. We've covered what details are, what clients care about, how details set you apart from other photographers, how details can impact your pricing, and we covered our workflows and how to achieve detailed photos while shooting clients. I think the big secret there is you just move around and look for them constantly, simultaneously, as you're looking at your clients. The thing is this stuff barely touches the surface in rocking details. So Max and I have put together a 2-day in-person workshop to master details. By the end of the workshop, you will know 2 different approaches to shooting details, from a photographer that creates authentic imagery through directing, and from one photographer that makes meaningful imagery with no directing. Like, you have 2 totally different perspectives to learn from. You'll learn how to step into any scene and see details with little to no background information about your clients. So even though I'd go through my questionnaires and all of this stuff, if I didn't have that, I would still be able to get a ton of information just from my clients, and you'll learn that. You'll also learn how to compose the detail opportunities, like the shooting aspect of it, inside your frame with confidence. You'll be able to create a session after this workshop that gives your client deeply meaningful, story-filled photos where the details aren't just extras, but a real part, a genuine part of the gallery that, like, it's like a piece of the puzzle that just fits. You'll also be able to create a session that is full custom photography, like a full custom photography experience worth paying whatever you decide. So introducing It Matters. This is the workshop dedicated to details. On day one of the workshop, we will have a brief welcome and intro session. We will have a section that is real details that will rock your gallery, our approaches and overview on how to implement our approaches, Max and mine's different approaches to the shoot, and an overview on how to implement our approaches into your workflow. We will go through, this is my favorite part, we're going to actually literally set up an obstacle course to help you see a detail-oriented photographer using the environment. Then we will do a shooting observation session. We have a model who is actually also the one that's letting us use her home for the workshop. So you're going to be able to watch us shoot a family of 4 having lunch in home and snap a few photos of your own as well. Then we're going to have a lunch break so you can load images onto laptops and all of that fun stuff. And we'll do a quick culling and editing, because I think that editing is always a big question once you get these, how do you really put it all together. And then we're going to talk about strengthening your voice. Now, this is the part that I think really sets this workshop apart from everybody else. We are going to teach you our approaches and how to implement them into your workflow, but we want to spend some time helping you strengthen your own voice, because even though Max and I are very detail driven, we see things differently. And we don't want to teach you just how to see like us and mimic what we're doing. We want to
your perspective.
Yeah, and your experience and everything that makes you you. We want to see that in your images. So that night, and then we'll have a Q&A and a dinner venue planned for anyone who wants to join us. And then on day 2, we'll start off with another opportunity for some shooting observation and practice. We will talk about how to connect with clients from inquiry to booking, from session to product delivery, the whole business aspect of it all. Yeah, and then we'll have lunch again for you, but you'll be learning during this lunch segment, we'll talk about shooting freely with a mission. This is all about creating a freestyle session workflow of your own with structure using strategic client interaction. And then we have a section on great unposed portraits. This is all about how to get authentic images of individuals without traditional posing. Holy crap, I want to show up to this and learn for myself.
That's what we said last night. We're like, you want to
yeah, every time I read this. Yeah, so the location is in Alexandria, Virginia. Neither one of us have ever been there. It's just outside of Washington, DC. There's a photographer named Nicole that has been gracious enough to open up her home, which I want to bring that up because we don't want to take you to a conference center where it's not where you're actually going to be shooting. We are going to be in a home so you can
real person.
Yeah.
A real home.
Exactly. And the date is September.
We've never met before.
Yeah, September 24th and 25th. Again, it's a 2-day event. It's on the weekend with Max and myself. If you combine,
and all the combination stuff are all close by. Everything's really cool.
Yeah.
And then he also said that there's a little town and stuff, and
yeah, shopping and
an outdoor location, right? That's really, really nice.
Yeah, she said her backyard opens up to I forget if it's a playground with a barn or something. I forget, but anyway, it just sounds super dreamy. The total value, if you really think about it, between the things that don't probably matter all that much, the little things that cost, the lunches, the swag bag we're putting together, and then the major things our combined mentor rates for small group mentoring. The total value of that would be $2,400. Travel and accommodations are not included in this. Your investment, though, however, for your seat to this 2-day workshop is $1,200. You'll get a swag bag. You'll get our dedicated mentor time as a small group, the entire workshop. You're learning from a vibrant, poetic shooter that knows how to take control of a scene and execute the photos that she is after, which is Max. And then you'll also learn from a more reserved, purely documentary, minimal client directive shooter, myself. So you're working with two photographers with a passion to tell a full story with photos, and will help you find your voice, which I think is super special. However, just for showing up on this webinar, we are going to give you a discount, $200 off of this workshop. We only have 7 seats available right now. We've sold some seats already. To qualify, you have to purchase just your non-refundable deposit of $250 to get in at this rate by the time we're off of the webinar. And the full payment, it'll be $1,000, will be due by August 10th. So it won't be, if you pay the $250 tonight, then it's only $750 by August 10th. So just to be clear on that. Whoops, skipped ahead. So here's the link to grab your seat. You can go to fearlessandframed.com/shop/it-matters-secret. I'm actually going to pop into I'm going to email this link to Max in just a moment, when we get to the Q&A. So don't feel like you have to rush there right now, but we'll get you there. But once you go there,
I get to see faces and names. Like, I want to put them to the names.
Yeah, I think that'll be super fun to finally actually meet other photographers in real life instead of behind the computer. And so when you go to the site, though, you cannot get to that link through this. Like, you can't go to fearlessandframed.com and go to the shop. This is a secret link for those of you that are on the workshop. And when you go to that link, you will see $250 to $1,000. You won't see the $1,200 price there. So once again, your investment, $1,000. You're getting both of us, our time, our approaches, helping you to master details from the shooting aspect and honing in on your voice as a photographer so that you can create a badass session for yourself. So, so we are going to go ahead. I'm going to put this link in the chat area. So this link is actually a redirect link. So hang tight. Let me pull it up for you. And then
where was this workshop when I first started?
Right? Yeah.
I really needed this.
So if you have any questions on the workshop or on anything, like we kind of skipped over a question area, like with pricing and the workflows. So any questions on any of the content from tonight or the workshop itself. Just as a side note, when this morning I went to kayak.com. I get all of my airplane airfare from there. From Detroit it was the Reagan National Airport. It was like $200. And when I looked on there from LA, California, I figured that was like the furthest place away to that same airport. It was still under $300 for there. And I figure instead of like rushing and getting a hotel room, Max and I don't even have a hotel room yet. I did look, and it's like a typical hotel price range between like $100 and $200. I figure once we have the workshop seats and we have everybody like in an email chain or like in a Facebook group or something, maybe if you want to buddy up with someone, then that would save, like we can figure that part out later. There's public transportation from the airport to the city the hotels are in, and then we discussed like getting a cab or something to get from the hotel to Nicole's house for the workshop both days. So we've got you covered. We're going to make sure that it's easy to navigate around. I know if I was purchasing something, those would be questions that I have. So again, hop into the different areas. I'm going to get the workshop link out in just a second here so you can click on it. Max, do you see any questions that have popped up in the Facebook group?
I just saw one by Holly. She said, how many images do you provide in a gallery on average? So for me, it really, really depends. It depends on what kind of session it is. Like, is there 6 kids or is there 1 kid? I feel like it doesn't yield as many images when you have less people. On average, I always say, and I try not to limit, like when people say, how many images do I get? I usually say no less than 30, but sometimes I can go into 80. So it really, I always usually like to say, 30 to 40 on average, but, and I explain it very candidly. Like sometimes I can give you 80 images, whatever the session yields. And I never leave until I'm complete. You will get a full session from start to finish. And however many images it takes to get that is what you will get. So that's how much I provide in like my digital galleries that like are my typical shoots. And then of course, when it comes to, if someone chooses a shoot just for prints, that is very, very specific. They'll tell me a few things that they want to print and I'll just give them 10 or so images and we'll pick and then that's it.
Yeah, for me, same thing. Like it really for me depends on the length of the session itself. And I think that I'm probably super generous. I will say that I'm very, very strict when it comes to my culling. Like I won't give people 3 images that look similar, but there's just a tiny different aspect in both of them. So the images that they get are very different throughout. And I say, so when I shoot a wedding, let's just say like on the long term, like I'm usually giving like at least 400 total images, which turns into more like 800 or 900 when you are thinking color and plus black and white. And that's like for 8 hours or more. So I don't give nearly that many for a full day session. I would say on average, I'm probably shooting like 30 maybe per hour. And then I would probably narrow it down to 10 to 20 per hour that I'm actually giving them. So same type of thing there. I did post in the group as well as, I didn't want to pull up my email on here, Max, because it would disrupt our thing, but I text you the link. It's the same link that's showing on the screen here, the Fearless and Framed.
So I can sign up? I want to sign up, so I can sign up.
fearlessandframed.com/shop/it-matters-secret. So I'm going to just look into YouTube and see what other questions have popped up here.
I'm going to have a look at my Instagram, see if anyone gave me any questions.
Meg says, these are the photos that I take and wonder if people will understand why I even took them. I love taking them, just got to figure out how to evoke that emotion in the clients. I know my response for that. Do you?
Can you repeat that? I was reading a question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Meg asked, these are the photos that I take and wonder if people will understand why I even took them. I love taking them, just got to figure out how to evoke that emotion in the clients. So my response to that is it begins for me, like here I go, marketing nerd here. The clients, honestly, like especially within the last like year and a half since I have become like such a marketing nerd, I am constantly bringing in people that already are going to, like everything, all the images that I've shown in this webinar, they're like, I totally get that. They would love that for themselves. So it's a lot of like the messaging. So I'm not always like, I am constantly like working through the words that I'm saying on my social media posts, my website, which please don't look at mariemoss.com because it's way outdated. I'm constantly bringing clients in that are looking for these images more than they're looking for anything else. And that begins with just how I'm putting my message out into the world. So sometimes I will run like Facebook ads to people in my area. Sometimes it's through, like, I very much believe that everyone should have some foundational blog posts and should have an email system that is set up coaching people and educating people because into what you're offering them. Not that these emails are all salesy, but you're letting, so in the Mastery Moment Seekers course that I teach all about marketing, one of the exercises I have people do in there is actually do interviews and reach out to people that they believe would be their perfect client and straight up ask them what they think, say a documentary session is, meaning they're not always using that terminology documentary session, but whatever terminology they're using, because most photographers label their sessions as something, whether it's a lifestyle photographer, a newborn photographer, or whatever. Like, you ask those ideal clients, what do you think I mean, like, when I say this type of session? And like 9 times out of 10, that person that's not a photographer will tell them what they think it is, and they're like totally incorrect. Like, a lot of people are like, well, a documentary session sounds like CNN coming into my home. Well, we know that's not the case. So, but if you build a marketing plan that first educates people and gives them some value, like sharing some of your personal experiences, like how I've talked about my mom with their Mickey Mouse jacket and Diet Mountain Dew that she's always carrying. When I tell that story to people, a lot of people are like, oh, I know somebody that like has like their little staples, and they can relate to that. And when you put those kind of relatable stories into your messaging, those people are going to be attracted to you, people that appreciate that. And you're also going to repel the people that are like, no, I just want gorgeous portraits. So if you're getting to people, like if you are getting to that point where you're revealing a gallery, and I've had this happen a few years ago. I did a maternity session, and I was really focused on details and stuff. And the client actually said to me, I wish that there were more photos of our faces. Well, I didn't market to I didn't bring in the correct client for my business for what I was doing. And at that time, I wasn't doing the questionnaires. Like, I hadn't really mastered my own workflow there. Since I have done my own workflow pre-shoot, I haven't had any issues there, because I'm getting the people that are like, holy crap, I'm blown away by all of the details in these, I can feel the emotions of our day or the story, as opposed to, where are our faces? So I think that's a long answer, but I think that marketing it with like really, really strong messaging makes all the difference. Do you see any other questions right now?
I see a couple. I see 2 that are pretty important. And
Okay.
I think we will probably at the workshop do some of this shooting outside. Just bringing it up right now.
Okay.
Okay, so Jessica said, how do details work when it's not an in-home session? When there aren't sippy cups and home decor to set the mood, what if families want to shoot in a park? I think that's a great question. I think what we need to remember is that details are not just objects.
Mm-hmm.
They be emotions, human details, that kind of stuff. I know for me with shooting outdoors, I like to try to get people to shoot at a place, or even not outdoors, or just on location in general, whether that's outside or not.
Mm-hmm.
I like to shoot them somewhere where they frequent that's personal to them.
Mm-hmm.
If they say, no, I just want a park because I really like the pretty greenery and the forest and the open field or whatever it is that they like, I usually ask them to bring some things along that, is a little bit personal to them. Like, for example, I did an open field shoot for a family of 3 boys. And she is a photographer, so she actually might be listening to this right now. They're very into soccer. So they brought a soccer ball. The boys are very active, and mainly they brought the soccer ball to just, help ease the boys into the photo shoot, because, they really didn't want to take pictures. And it became very, like, when we did our family portrait, where they're all, together, where I directed it and I got them all in the frame, all their faces. Dad was actually sitting on the soccer ball, and it was really cool. And it just looked natural, but it was still very much a portrait of all of them looking at the camera. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's, even hugging or anything like that, shooting details of hands around waist or embracing, I actually had to shoot another photographer. She's probably listening. Rachel, this is for your family. She has 3 kids, 2 girls and 1 boy. And I shot them where her and her husband's hands were like on the children, like they were up against them. And their hands are like, holding them. And then the little kids' hands are like kind of holding on. And it's just a whole different set of hands, different ages. Some's wearing jewelry, some aren't. You could tell, some hands are dirty. it just was those very important human details outside in like a basic outdoor setting that was important to them. She happened to wear a hat. The hat was very cool on her. That was a detail also that's part of her.
Mm-hmm.
So shooting details outside, again, or in general, when it's not an in-home session, I'm not really looking to shoot their decor so much, but so much as to what it is that the decor is showing that could possibly add to their story.
Mm-hmm.
And they come like that too. They can come dressed like that. So that's what we have to remember, what is important to the family. And I think if we, for the workshop, if we're planning on shooting outside a little bit, there will be a lot of differences there that you will see, but you will still see how we're honing in on them and who they are and the details that make that up.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I actually, it's sort of a rule. Unless my clients like have some sort of very sentimental attachment to a park, that's part of my marketing is like, I am not going to let you go to a beautiful location. If we're outdoors, it's something that's meaningful. So it's going to be around a campfire. So in earlier days of shooting, I'm thinking about details that were in I did 2 different campfire sessions for 2 different engaged couples. At the time, they were like a little more on the lifestyle side where I was like, not super directing them, but there were a lot of more like, okay, kiss her on the forehead and things like that because I was still learning. But I'm thinking about the details from that session, and details in nature are a huge part of the story if the story is revolving about around part of that location. So for example, there's the smell of the smoke, and if I have this one photo that's coming to mind of the clients, they're kind of sitting off to the side, and I have the fire and the smoke and ashes, the ash sparks coming up in my frame. And not, if I just would have focused in on my clients, you wouldn't really get that whole scene. More recently, I shot a session at the beach. So the beach is a huge part of these clients' lives, and to me, this is actually on the Fearless and Framed blog somewhere. I think it's called getting more photos in a shorter session or something. I wrote about rocking this session out in an hour-ish. I can't remember exactly. And to me, if you're doing a session at a public type of location, it's not all about showing up on that sand on the beach and shooting them just playing. It's that whole, you gotta think, remember, whether you have kids or not, I'm sure you can relate to having to load 3 kids up, one being a baby, all of the towels, all of the everything that you need, their toys, their little goggles and stuff, and lugging 3 kids plus all that stuff to spend a day at the beach. That's a lot of work. And at the end of that beach time, the kids are usually exhausted because they've spent so much time in the sun. So more than just showing up on the beach and showing all of the activity going on the beach, I started in the parking lot when they were unloading everything. So I've got the family, that's details to me, the details of the back hatch of that car opened up and you see all the stuff that they need for the beach. And you see the dad changing, I think he was changing the little guy into his swim shorts or something like that. So there's all that preparation detail that goes into the story that goes beyond just getting the kids acting adorable on the beach, playing with the water and the shovels and diving with the goggles and all of that. There's a whole story there that is going to take them back to that moment by it's sort of just completing that beginning, middle, and end to the stories. That's how I try to approach the outdoor sessions. So you're using details that are a part of the happenings. And then I love using nature as the details. So as you saw from that one session, I had the ones that the clients purchased, it was just of the trees. The clients weren't even in the image at all, because that was the part of the scene that it's a place that is highly recognizable to them, not just some random park that we took, that we went to, where if I took a picture of the play structure with some trees in the background, they wouldn't care. So that's my perspective there.
I actually have one more comment on that. Ebony, who's in this group, who everyone knows very well,
Mm-hmm.
I think. I did a family session for her about 2 years ago, or maybe 3. I don't even know. Time went by so fast. And it was an in-home shoot, but it was all in her backyard. She had very specific idea in her head with her kids playing in the sprinklers, playing on a swing set, barbecuing. It was a huge thing for her. And that was really very cool and dynamic for me. And it was, the details of, the water drops on their skin and, the sprinklers and the smoke from the barbecue and, the foliage in their yard and them on their swings while they're in their bathing suits swinging. Like, those are very strong, detail-oriented sessions, even if they're not inside of the home. So, like, when I say in home, I do shoot outside sometimes, especially in the backyard or part of, like, the in or around the home is important to someone. Even if it's at a high noon, I will go outside if it's very important to them. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting to see, like, your perspective on mine. I'm just still learning so much from you.
I know, they're very different, and now I'm like, feeling inspired. I want to see everyone at the workshop. I want to be inspired by you. Whenever I do my one-on-ones, like mentoring, I'm very, like, I'll have students send me pictures from the same session that we all shot together, and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? It's just very cool. You guys are awesome.
Yeah. So I think that if there aren't any other questions, we will wrap this up. I will work on getting a replay out. So if you want to hear all of this again, I'll have that going out tomorrow. Just know that after tonight, the link that you see here, fearlessandframed.com/shop/it-matters-secret will be disappearing. So if you want to get in on this, save $200. Now is the time, tonight. I'll probably take it down more like by noon tomorrow because I'm not quite the early bird in my office, but just as you're aware. And if you have any questions on the workshop at all, when I send out the replay or in the groups, tag one of us, reply to whatever email I send out tomorrow with the replay or to the registration link for tonight's webinar, and we'll get your questions answered. So anything else you want to add?
For you, Marie, if you look on my Instagram, there's a couple questions there under the picture of the family in the kitchen. I'm going to answer some of them, and you can answer them too.
Okay. Awesome.
We can both answer each question.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to let you know that there are some questions under there. So give us some time, guys. If you're still listening, if you commented on my Instagram, we're going to answer you. Don't worry.
Yeah, if you're still listening, really.
Questions.
Yeah, and if you're still listening, I mean, we've been going strong here for almost 2 hours, so I'm really impressed if you're still on.
Yeah, really.
And there's still a lot of people on, so that's pretty cool. So, see you guys. Have a good night. Thank you for listening, and hopefully we will see you just outside of DC in September.
Yes, I hope so. Bye.
Bye.